वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यमुनतीरावनचारी यमुनतीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यमुनतीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतश्री श्रीमद His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29, Text 73. Arte hi avidyamanepi samsritir na nivartate dhyayato vishayanasya स्वप्ने नर्थागमो यथा अर्थे हि अविद्यमानेपि संसृतिर्न निवर्तते ध्यायतो विषयानस्य स्वप्ने नर्थागमो यथा अर्थे हि अविद्यमानेपि संसृतिर्न निवर्तते ध्यायतो विषयानस्य स्वप्ने नर्थागमो यथा मानेपि संसृतिर्न निवर्तते ध्यायतो विषयानस्य स्वप्ने नर्थागमो यथा अर्थे हि अविद्यमानेपि संसृतिर्न निवर्तते ध्यायतो विषयानस्य स्वप्ने नर्थागमो यथा. Ladies, please. अर्थे हि अविद्यमानेपि संसृतिर्न निवर्तते ध्यायतो विषयानस्य स्वप्ने नर्थागमो यथा. अर्थे हि अविद्यमानेऽपि संसृतिर्न निवर्तते ध्यायतो विषयानस्य स्वप्नेनर्थागमो यथा. Arthe, sense objects. He, certainly. Avidyamane, not being present. Api, although. Samsriti, material existence. Na, never. Nivartate, ceases. Dhyayataha, meditating. Vishayan, on sense objects. Asya, of the living being. Swapne, in dream. Anartha, of unwanted things. Agamaha, appearance. Yatha, as. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Very interesting verse and purport. It is like a secret into why there is either a fall down or how sometimes the inexplicable phenomena of sense gratification even without the gratification being present. When the living entity dreams, the sense objects are not actually present. However, because one has associated with the sense objects, they become manifest. Similarly, the living entity with undeveloped senses does not cease to exist materially, even though he may not be actually in contact with the sense objects. Purport. It is sometimes said that because a child is innocent, he is completely pure. Actually, this is not a fact. Which is not a fact? Not that he is innocent or that he is pure. Actually, this is not a fact. The effects of fruitive activities reserved in the subtle body appear in three concurrent stages. One is called bija, the root. Another is called kutastha, the desire. And another is called phalonmukha, about to fructify. The manifest stage is called prarabdha, already in action. In a conscious or unconscious state, the actions of the subtle or gross bodies may not be manifest, but such states cannot be called the liberated state. A child may be innocent, but it does not mean that he is a liberated soul. Everything is held in reservation, and everything will become manifest in due course of time. Even in the absence of certain manifestations in the subtle body, the objects of sense enjoyment may act. The example has been given of a nocturnal emission, in which the physical senses act even when the physical objects are not manifest. The three modes of material nature may not be manifest in the subtle body, but the contamination of the three modes remains conserved, and in due course of time it becomes manifest. Even if the reactions of the subtle and gross bodies are not manifest, one does not become free from the material conditions. Therefore, it is wrong to say that the child is as good as a liberated soul. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Where's Richard? He was here. Two brahmacharis went on a trip. They're not Jai Jagannath and Himanshu. Some other two brahmacharis. They went on a trip. And as they were going from one village to another village, they saw in one village that a young, good-looking woman, very attractive, standing at the brink of a well, about to jump in to commit suicide. So one of the brahmacharis ran and caught her by her thin, delicate waist and got her down and said, "What are you doing? Life is meant for cultivation of God consciousness. Please don't end your life like this and waste it." So she thanked him, and they moved on. And they traveled to another village. So about 3 days later, the second brahmachari said, "I'm actually very upset with you." So the first hero brahmachari said, "Why? What did I do? What did I do wrong?" He said, as brahmacharis, it is our dharma to not come in contact with women. Ideally, we should not even have eye contact. And whatever is there for service, but I saw that you ran and you grabbed her thin, delicate waist, and you even had a conversation with her. The fact that you touched her and carried her like that, I'm very disturbed by that fact. I'm worried that you will not be able to maintain your brahmacharya, and I'm very upset. So the first brahmachari told the second one, "Why, I carried her 3 days ago for 2 seconds. You've been carrying her all along." So dhyayato vishayan asya. That's the phrase. This is the catchphrase. Dhyayato vishayan. Contemplation on the sense objects. This verse is very similar to the couplet in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, texts 62 and 63, where Krishna describes what we say, the modality or the mechanism of fall down. There are 8 steps in this. Dhyayato vishayan pumsan. Contemplation on the objects of senses is the root cause of all problems. Sangas teshu upajayate. Because when we contemplate on the sense objects, we develop an attachment to those sense objects. Sangat sanjayate kama. From that attachment arises this desire to enjoy that sense object. Kamat krodha abhijayate. However, not everything that we desire comes to us. So there is frustration. Krodad bhavati sammoha. And because there is frustration, that frustration and desire, they act against each other. So there is bewilderment. Sammohat smriti vibhrama. Smriti vibhrama means one forgets. One's memory is lost. One's memory about what is their goal of life, what is the purpose of doing anything, memory of my relationship with that sense object, because that sense object actually belongs to either Krishna ultimately or to someone else on a material platform. Smriti bhramshad buddhinasha. As soon as memory goes, intelligence takes a hike. Buddhinasha actually gets destroyed. And buddhinasha pranashyati, the living entity falls, degrades. Now, these 8 things happen so quickly that it's almost like in an instant. So we cannot really break it down to say, "Oh, I'm at the Sangat Sanjayate Kama stage, I should stop right now." Or I'm at the Smriti Vibhrama, Buddhinasha is about to happen. It doesn't work like that. It all happens. But what we have control on or awakening on is Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa. Once we do the dhyayato vishayan, then it's almost like a irreversible situation. Contemplation on the objects of senses. How nice it shall be to do such and such. So Prabhupada says, some people say that a child is innocent. Because a child, even if he sees, let's say, a naked woman, he's not going to get sexually attracted. But here Prabhupada is describing that that's not the case. The sexual agitation might not happen in that instant, but that image gets very nicely deposited in the consciousness, in the subtle body. And when the gross body, this is continuing from yesterday, when the gross body becomes able to enjoy sense gratification in the form of sexual contact, those impressions come right back up. So all that innocence goes away. So what is important is what kind of images, what kind of impressions are deposited in our consciousness from the beginning of our childhood. In fact, even before birth. Recently I've had the honor of performing or being the Brahmana for ceremonies called Srimantonnayana, which is basically, in English, crude English translation is baby showers. Baby showers, people bring gifts and they have jokes and the music and dance and they go home. But this ceremony is actually the case where it is done usually around the 6th or the 8th month, when the fetus has fully developed. All the gross senses are fully manifest. All the subtle senses are fully manifest. The baby literally can open its eyes, can hear sound vibration, and some cognitive processes begin. Although cognitive process is very much advanced, that once it becomes a child, this is happening, therefore that's not that kind of cognitive process, but the thinking capacity begins. So it is said that at that time, the very first sound vibrations that enter the consciousness should be the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. So all the mantras are chanted of Lord Vishnu, there is kirtan, and the mother eats Mahaprasadam. So that the foundational images, the foundational desires are in the direction of Vishnu. And then anything else, they come out and see cartoons and then the whole thing gets messed up. But everything that we perceive through our senses, eyes, nose, ears, tongue, skin, is an impression that's stored and will come up at some point in time. So it's very important that as aspiring transcendentalists, regardless of whatever ashram we are part of, whatever varna we are part of, whatever gender we are part of, that we not contemplate on the objects of the senses. Because the verse, Narada Muni is warning us, warning Prachina Barhishat, is warning us, Arthe hi avidyamane api, even if the sense objects are not present. Samsritirna nivartate. The cycle of fruitive, repetitive, karmic behaviors does not stop just because sense objects are not there. Dhyayato vishayan asya swapne anartha agamo yatha. Because even if the sense objects are not present, swapne, in one's dream, in one's imagination, all the sense objects exist. And that's why here Prabhupada gives in yesterday's purport and today's purport The example of nocturnal emissions. A person dreams some contact with sense object. You hear this specific references to sexual contact. That even if they're in sleep, they're dreaming. In their dream, they have emissions. And that's because on the subtle platform, the activity is happening. So it's just generally said that those who are practicing yoga should make sure that they don't stuff their digestive system with stimulant foods, especially at night. Because Rupa Goswami has told us, Jiva, Udara, Upastha, Vega. These three are connected. That the tendency by when one eats with a very enjoyment, lusty way, this is for my enjoyment, one should know that the consequence of that is sexual agitation. Therefore, yogis are generally said to eat simple. Yogis means bhakti yogis included. Eat simply, even if it is opulent Mahaprasadam. It is eaten or honored in a very simple state of mind, or a grateful state of mind. Even if Mahaprasadam is gorged, it has some effects, negative effect. Especially night time, to not eat excessive sweet, excessive sour foods, because they are stimulants. And by that stimulation, the subtle body gets highly activated. So persons dream. And in the dream state, they contact the sense objects. And actual activity happens on a subtle platform. So it's one should be very careful to not contemplate on the sense objects. So one might say, maybe we should just not open our eyes, hear anything, taste anything, touch anything, because it's dangerous, it's risky. We should become hermits, lock ourselves in the ashram or at home and not go out anywhere, because if I go out for Sankirtan, whoa, or if I do this, that's what's going to happen. I should not get married because Maya is with me. No, because here Narada is saying, even if the sense objects are absent, activity is still going on. So it's not that the wife is a Maya or the people out there is Maya or the idea that I'm meditating on it, that is Maya. That meditation of enjoyment is Maya. The object itself is not Maya. Dhyayaton vishayan asya. That is Maya. So why Bhakti Yoga is the most effective means is because when we come in contact with the sense objects, the mood we are developing is that object is for Krishna's enjoyment. How can I enhance Krishna's enjoyment? I've been hearing that sometimes in the kitchen, when cooking is happening, either devotees, generally devotees are more trained than this, but some trained devotees who may not be trained so well, or random visitors walk right into the kitchen. Oh, you're making this. How nice. The smell is fantastic. Very good. Then Krishna gets Mahaprasadam of that person because their person already enjoyed it. It is called bhoga because it is for Krishna's enjoyment. I was told someone walked right into the kitchen in their shorts and said, oh, you're making samosas. I like samosas. So while they were being fried, even the devotee was fried. Like, what is going on? So actually, in temples, the area where the deity's paraphernalia is kept, their clothes, their jewelry, the kitchen, they're not accessible to anyone except the pujaris and the cooks. No one else sees. What is being cooked for Krishna, only the cook knows and the pujari knows. Other than that, no one should know. Everything is covered and brought because it is first for Krishna's enjoyment. Otherwise, this meditation. Let me make this nice. Then we treat Krishna as what my spiritual master calls him as a checkout counter. That we do everything for our pleasure. We keep the plate there, ring a bell and say, please give us your stamp of approval. This is now prasadam. It's a checkout counter. Krishna is not a little good stamp of approval. Chung, approved, prasadam now. That bhakta was waiting there, give it to him. In the life of Ramanujacharya, there's a very nice pastime. Ramanujacharya had a disciple by the name Kuresha. That disciple's attraction to his spiritual master is off the charts even when it compares to scriptural standards. It's really out there. Very, very amazing surrender to his guru. And he had a wife, Andal. She was also like that. So Kuresha and Andal were very wealthy. So wealthy that's unbelievable. Every day at sunrise, the gates of their palace would open. And from morning till sunset, they would be giving in charity. To whoever came, whatever they asked, they would just give in charity. And the gates would close at the end of the day. One day, Lord Ranganath's consort, Mother Lakshmi, asked Lord Ranganath, what is that sound? Every day the gates open, gates close. There is so much, activity. What is that? So Lord Ranganath said, that is Kuresha's house. Kuresha is a very charitable person. He is a very great devotee. So even the Lord and his consort would discuss about Kuresha and his charitable nature. And so they became so austere in the service of Ramanujacharya that they sometimes didn't even have anything to eat, but they were busy serving. So one day Andal looked at Kuresha, who was very hungry. She knew, but he was not asking for prasadam. So in her mind, that was the time when the Rajbhog for Lord Ranganath was being offered on a golden plate, massive plate. Fantastic items were cooked and they were kept on the altar and the bells were ringing for the temple. So Andal, in her mind, offered a prayer. My dear Lord Ranganath, you're eating Rajbhog so wonderfully and your very surrendered devotee has had nothing to eat. That was her little chaste thought about her husband. As the bells were ringing, Lord Ranganath told the pujari, enough, take the plate and take the whole Rajbhog offering to Kuresha's house. So the Rajbhog, the prasadam plate, it was followed with a procession of brahmanas reciting mantras. They were playing drums, blowing conches, and the plate was taken to Kuresha's house. Big plate, all the brahmanas reciting mantras, saying, you're such a great personality, the Lord personally wants his plate to come to you. Now Kuresha realized that he should not eat it, while he should take Mahaprasada, and he knew something. So he asked his wife, did you do something? So she said, I couldn't look at you like this, so I offered a little prayer that you get some prasadam. He said, we should not disturb the Lord like that. This is not proper. However, we cannot say no to prasadam. So he took a little, because he has to honor prasadam. He gave his wife a little, and the rest of the Mahaprasadam was distributed in the entire village of Srirangam. The potency of that Mahaprasadam that Andal ate was so intense that she became pregnant with 2 children, or twins, who later on, one of them became Parashara Bhatta, who was like the Acharya for the entire Sri Vaishnava tradition after Ramanujacharya. So they are considered sons of Lord Ranganath. Anyway, the story goes on. Lord Ranganath would invite the children's swing to be on the altar. Generally, you never place a baby on the altar because the baby is considered like Mahamuchi. They wear diapers, they pee in the diapers. It's just very unclean. Babies are very unclean. So there are many persons who come and keep their babies on the altar. Oh, and we have to tell them, please, that's altar. But Ranganath invited the two children on a swing, on his altar, every day, and they were to be swung. And he would watch them, look at them. They were very special. So the point here is, subtle activities happen. And that meditation on sense objects is the root cause of fall downs. That meditation is, wouldn't it be nice to do such and such? If we don't learn to catch ourselves and correct that immediately, then it grows, it accrues. At that moment we may say, oh, no. But if that meditation continues on a subtle platform, then it's very dangerous. The same nivartate phrase or word comes in the same section of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 59. Because Krishna is describing how or what is the way in which a sthita pragya, a person whose consciousness is fixed, does not deviate from that level of consciousness. And then he contrasts that how one might fall and what is the way to not do so. So in that 259, which we call the higher taste verse, Krishna says, Param drishtva nivartate. Nivartate means ends. Here, Narada is saying, na nivartate. The constant karmic activities do not stop just because the sense object is not present. Same theme Krishna is describing. What is the use of artificially repressing yourself away from all sense objects and thinking you're advanced? The real advancement is param drishtva, that you have to have a higher taste, cultivate a higher taste that is a spiritual sense contact, or spiritualize your senses so that they contact the absolute good. And that meditation, that dhyayata, is very good. In fact, it is what liberates a person. So said differently, this morning we were hearing Prabhupada. Prabhupada said it's all about the quality of one's desire. The process of yoga, the process of Krishna consciousness, is to transform the quality of one's desires. From materialistic desires to spiritual desires. Our process is not negation of any desire. I have no desires. Then I'm good as good as a stone. Stones are not liberated. Stones are not transcendental. Yogis are transcendental. Devotees are transcendental. And because they have a purified set of desires. That transformation of desires comes from hearing, chanting, and the ninefold process of bhakti. Most importantly, hearing, chanting, and remembering. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. These three manifest activities as Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, and Atmanivedanam. So without hearing and chanting and remembering, the engagement of our senses in Krishna's service is not possible. Sometimes people think, I have so much service, or it's all about service, I should only do service. Even if I don't get to chant, that's okay, I should do service. This is not correct. One should engage in service only on the basis of hearing and chanting. Because that's what gives transcendental desires. There are many persons who come to our temple and we invite them, please hear and chant. I can do some service. that's a good way to start, but that service must awaken taste for hearing and chanting. Otherwise, the benefit is not significant. The benefit is definitely, enough to bring them to the stage of hearing and chanting. But it should happen. So in this purport, Prabhupada gives us the mechanics of acting in a materialistic way. So the root cause, as we studied in Nectar of Devotion, we all gave presentations on it. So this is a review. The root cause of sin or materialistic behavior is avidya or ignorance. And that avidya gives rise to this thing called kuta. Kuta means materialistic desire, the tendency. When that desire is nourished, it becomes bija. It's a root or seed for sinful activity. Like we say, thinking, feeling and willing, it's in the thinking stage already. And from kuta, from bija, it becomes phala unmukha. Phala unmukha means about to fructify. That sense object and this conditioned soul or mind are going to come in contact very soon, about to happen. Phala unmukha. And when it manifests, one acts in a way, one gets a sinful reaction, and that is called prarabdha. Prarabdha means sinful reactions or karmic reaction that we are experiencing right now. Disease, anxiety, restlessness, Prabhupada says unemployment. These are prarabdha karma. What happens in prarabdha stage is a person is bewildered. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. And in that bewildered stage, he acts against his own benefit. That acting against one's own ultimate benefit is because he has to immediately counteract that reaction. Right? This is what we're going to talk later today at IITs, the search for happiness. We all are going to, the whole idea of living in this world is to counteract misery and enhance happiness. This is all what we're doing. So that counteracting of misery happens in such a reactive, impulsive, instinctual manner that one doesn't consider what is my real benefit here. Nate vidu swarthagati hi Vishnu. Durashaya ye bahirarthamanina. Because they are bahirartha. They are not turned towards Krishna. Andhaya thandhai upaniyamana tepisha tantram urudam nibaddha. So when they are focused on extracting happiness from material atmosphere, they are bound by ropes of the three modes of nature by their waist and dragged. Prabhupada gives like a visual. If we are tied around our waist by a rope and we're pulled, you cannot stop it. It's very difficult to counteract that pull. And the modes of nature pull really hard. That's for a person who's trying to resist. For most people, it's just a tug. And the conditioned soul goes along. Just a little tug. It's for a yogi that it's really a pull and hard because we're resisting. And for the Prabhupada ends the purport with that for a person who's engaged in Krishna's service, the ropes are untied. There is no tug, no pull from the three modes of nature. That's the difference between a liberated soul, the very word liberated means untied, and a so-called innocent child. The so-called innocent child has the ropes around his waist, just not pulled yet. And the liberated soul doesn't have any ropes tied around his waist. Urudamni. Uru means the waist or stomach. Then dam means rope. Right? Damodara. Dama udara. So one shouldn't think, oh, children are innocent. Prabhupada said they're not. The subtle body has all the wonderful stored impressions for sense gratification waiting to manifest. The real innocence is when those impressions are counteracted by the process of devotional service. So the end message is one should be very careful. One should be very careful what kind of aspirations one is cultivating. One should be very careful what kind of desires one is feeding. Because when we are cultivating the garden of Krishna consciousness, if our attention goes to the weeds and we are chanting Hare Krishna, then guess what? We're watering the weeds. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. It'd be nice today if Raj Bhog has gulab jamuns. We're watering the weeds then. So this watering is a very, very careful, precise method as to what is our internal disposition when we are chanting the holy name. If you have materialistic desires and chant the holy name, all those materialistic desires will manifest. They'll be fulfilled. So we're cautioned to very carefully chant, my dear Krishna, please engage me in your service. That's the only desire to cultivate. Please engage me in your service. Please engage me in your service. This other side, second track, parallel track of materialistic desires, please don't pay attention to it, Krishna. Just pay attention to, please give me your service. Okay. Any contribution from anyone? Jitendra?
I remember hearing in previous ages a person would be punishable for his thoughts.
Yeah.
But in Kali Yuga, the atmosphere is so surcharged with nescience, or, the situation is so pathetic that there's a special concession because of Kali Yuga. And another thing is, I remember hearing this poem, and a child is born with a heart of gold, but the ways of the world turn him cold. But he's not really born with a heart of gold. But that was a poem I just remembered. Anyways, Hare Krishna.
Our poem is Artehi Avidyamanepi. That is our poem. That a child is not born innocent. Anything else? Avelo? Can you get him a mic, please? Not Jitendra Prabhu. Come on, guys, get up.
Hare Krishna. When I give in to certain kinds of sense gratification, or it's revealed, from that recognition comes a form of humility, and chanting becomes better, and prayers become deeper, and mood of submission becomes better. But from that again comes pride. Oh, look at me, I'm so humble, and immediately fall down again. They do the cycle of it, self gratification, and so it keeps, for me at least personally, keeps happening one after another, just like a hamster in a wheel. So how do we get out of that condition?
What you're saying in English is Narada Muni saying in Sanskrit. Artehi avidyamanepi samsritir na nivartate. So then how to get out of it?
Is it not to meditate on that?
Correct. So how to is there is a 4R process. You heard this 4R methodology that His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj gives? The first is recognition. One has to recognize that I'm stupid, I've done something really silly. The second R is regret. Third R is rectification. And the fourth R is reinstatement. So the regret might be there. The reinstatement needs to happen. The reinstatement is, oh, there is pride. That is my unfortunate condition. Look at me. I'm even proud about being regretful. How unfortunate. So then, this was the answer Maharaj gave recently to someone. That's the verse number 2 in Shikshashtaka. The my dear Krishna, although I'm chanting the holy name, although I've been given, how unfortunate. Durdaivam, idrisham, na anuragaha. My attraction is really not to you. How unfortunate. So he said to that person, who did he say to you or someone? Happily situate yourself in Shikshashtaka verse number 3 and chant from there. Trinadapi sunichena, turoriva sahishnana, amanina manadena. Start there. Just happily situate yourself there and chant from there. Okay. So the whole meditation is Trinadapi. Oh, I have pride. That's great pride. And I'm actually thinking I am somebody. Actually, I'm not even I am an infinitesimal part of Krishna. So tiny. But I have this idea that I'm really something significant. I'm very big. And that's not my access to Krishna. Krishna doesn't see that mood. He doesn't even look at it. I want to be noticed by Krishna, but not through pride. I want to be noticed by Krishna through genuine humility. That's when the Vaishnavas notice me. I can push my way through. Here I am. But Krishna doesn't pay attention. Confirmed. Taroriva. The Taroriva has many connotations to it. One is to just tolerate. That's the first instruction Krishna gives. Tolerate. Oh, I have pride. Oh, what to do? Just tolerate it and move on. Continue executing Krishna consciousness. Tolerate it. It's there. We all know. I mean, anyone here can say, I'm free of pride. I'm free of it. Honest persons can't say. Amanina manadena. So that tendency to be in the center, transform it to put the devotees and Krishna in the center. It's an active expression, not a passive method. Very actively bring the devotees to the center. Bring Krishna right into the center. That's a practice. And if we don't know how to do it, then associate with those who are very good at it. Because by association we learn. Emulate, pray, serve. Yeah.
It's easier to be humble when things are going wrong.
No, not necessarily.
Well,
maybe in your case.
In my case, I'm speaking. But if everything is, going right, then it's like, okay, what do I, regret about? What do I rectify?
We don't have to regret and rectify. We don't have to regret and rectify only because things are going wrong. We have to regret and rectify that we have this material body. In the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text number 20, in that purport, Prabhupada takes that there are two types of fall downs. There are two fall downs. One is the primordial fall down. I turned away from Krishna. And the second is, here I do many silly things that keeps me within this realm. The Avarnatmika Shakti and the Prakshepatmika Shakti. Those are the two features of Krishna's Maya. So I'm still covered. Things may be going right. I am still covered. So the chanting with humility in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary to Shikshashtaka in the 5th verse is a beautiful prayer Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives. I can't remember it verbatim, but this is what it is. O my Lord, Sri Krishna, for lifetimes and lifetimes I have wandered through this material cornucopia, searching for something other than you. In fact, I didn't want you at all. Somehow or the other, by the very gracious mercy of your devotee, I've come to understand that life is centered around you. Let me make it my determination now to qualify myself to be a speck or an atom at your lotus feet. That's the regret. Lifetimes I've wasted turning away from you. Lifetimes. That's my regret. Now that I have had someone knock me on the head a little bit, please. That's the regret. That's the rectification. Even when things are going very well. So-called very well. What is going very well in the material realm mean? Does it mean anything? No. Even the road to hell is paved with, let's say, good intentions. One can be very happily going in the wrong direction because everything is going well. So, does that help? Bhaktamat? Question? I'm very encouraged that you're asking question.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
I like the story that you told about the two devotees and the one devotee saving the girl. I've been noticing this within my own spiritual life, is that us as devotees and even non-devotees, we tend to see the I don't know if this maybe is puffing up our own egos or something, but we tend to see the wrong in what people are doing instead of what the good in what people are doing. And I liked the moral of that story is that the devotee's like, oh, well, you're not supposed to touch a girl. He wasn't worried about, well, he just saved a life. He was more or less worried, are you following the standard principles instead of, the practical matter of it.
Correct. So we shouldn't be going out on Sankirtan looking for girls at the well either, because, hey, I would like to save them. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on it. Acharya Nishtaprabhu.
Hi, Bo. I just wanted to bring up a point that I was considering when you were indicating these verses are explained as the process of fall down. But when I think in the devotional life, it seems that fall down may come from offense, or because there's the sense objects are certainly tempting the conditioned soul, but it seems in devotional service generally some kind of offense or aparad could be a prerequisite to that process, or I was wondering if you could comment on that.
Not necessarily. It depends on the manifestation of the situation. We know that anarthas arise from different sources. Anarthas arise because of previous past sinful activity. Anarthas arise because of previous pious activities. Anarthas arise because of offenses as well. So it's not just this or that. Even in devotional life, one can become haughty about how I come from a pious background, or I'm very pious, or look at how clean I am, and look at how that bhakta is. That can also happen. Past sinful tendencies, one can become attracted to them too. If one is not executing one's hearing and chanting properly, one of the symptoms that our hearing and chanting is not okay is that our attraction to those things that we gave up awakens again. That's a clear indication. Something's not right in my hearing and chanting. So, another is offense. We can offend the Vaishnava. Possible. Not possible. We do. Offend the deity in execution of seva. And the manifestation may be that we may go back to old habits. That's also there. So fall downs doesn't have to happen just by offense. It can happen from negligence. Yeah. Girish?
The contemplation of sense objects in the dreaming state, is it mainly because of our contemplation in the awakening state?
In the dream state, we are not contemplating. We are in contact with the sense objects. That's what the verse says. Even in the dream state, by that activity, the sense object is present. Although in the gross state, it's not present. The contact is happening on a subtle level. And that's because in the gross movement of things, these senses, they absorb. And then we connect to them. We meditate on them.
So the more we are Krishna conscious on the awakening state, that will help in the dreaming state, not to contemplate on sense objects.
But that's not why we are Krishna conscious. We are not cultivating Krishna conscious just so that in dreams we know. That's not our method. But the answer is yes. That in our awake state, the more our senses are coming in contact with sense objects, Krishna, with these objects like devotionally we are contacting, Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam. Then yes. Then our dreams are different. Prabhupada said, if you read Krishna book at night, well, you will dream of Krishna. Even in the old Vedic times, people's lifestyles were designed like that. That as soon as they would wake up, the first thing they would utter is the name of Guru and Krishna. And throughout the day, as they're engaging in their activities, they would only be singing verses or songs or praises of Krishna. Whole day, regardless of what they were doing. Some were in the farm, some were in the temple, some were whatever they were doing. Then they would come back at the end of the day as the sun was setting, and they would go to the temple for their arati, and there would be, it used to be called Harikatha. Harikatha is certain persons will set a stage and they will sing. They will depict, either through dance or through drama or through verses, to music, activities of Krishna. So when they would come back home and go to bed, guess what they would do? They would dream of Krishna. Life was molded like that. But now we go, as soon as we go out, all we see is this billboards. And what are the billboards having? What do they contain? Like we just heard Maharaj speaking. It's a pretty woman selling something, I forget what he was saying. Toothpaste. So hardly notice the toothpaste. Everything is like that. Surcharged. Prabhupada uses the phrase, surcharged. So we should have when we go out of the environment like this, when we go out, the purpose of why we are out there must be very, very crystal clear. Okay, 8:30. Thank you very much for your participation. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.